Chapter 12, Aligning Supply Chains. So after this chapter, you should be able to understand the concept of aligning supply chains and the importance. So let's take a look at the topic in a little bit more detail. A distinguishing characteristic of successful supply chains is the ability to achieve alignment between people, processes, and technologies that are essential to the planning and operational aspects of supply chains. Essentially, alignment refers to a commonality of functionality and purpose that reinforces accomplishment of supply chain goals and objectives. Three example types of alignment are highly relevant to supply chain management. These are supply chain and organizational strategies. Organizational success requires that the strategies, plans, and functionality of the supply chain are aligned with those of the overall organization. Second, of course, is supply and demand. Principally within an individual organization, alignment between supply and demand will help to maximize the extent to which products and services are available to customers when and where they're needed, and to minimize waste and inefficiency of resources throughout the supply chain. And then last, of course, is supply chain and trading partners. Going beyond the boundaries of an individual organization, there are significant benefits to making sure that the organization, its suppliers, and customers are aligned. As suggested by the figure on the slide, the range of relationship types extends from that of a vendor to that of a strategic alliance. In the context of the more traditional vertical context, a vendor is represented simply by a seller or provider of a product or service, such that there is little or no integration or collaboration with the buyer or purchaser. In essence, the relationship with a vendor is transactional, and parties to this type of relationship are said to be at arm's length, i.e. at a significant difference. The analogy of such a relationship to that experienced by one who uses a vending machine is not inappropriate. While this form of a relationship suggests a relatively low or non-existent level of involvement between the parties, there are certain types of transactions for which this option may be desirable. Alternatively, the relationship suggested by a strategic alliance is one in which two or more business organizations cooperate and willingly modify their business objectives and practices to help achieve long-term goals and objectives. I'd like to lay out a 6-step model for successfully establishing supply chain relationships. Step 1. Perform strategic assessment. This first step involves the process by which the manufacturer becomes fully aware of its logistics and supply chain needs and the overall strategies that will guide its operations. Step 2. The decision to form relationships. Depending on the type of relationship being considered by the manufacturing firm under consideration, this step may take on a slightly different decision context. This decision comprises several drivers such as asset to cost efficiency, customer service, marketing advantage, profit stability or growth, and facilitators such as corporate compatibility, management philosophy and techniques, mutuality of commitment to relationship formation, size, and of course financial symmetry. When the decision relates to using an external provider of logistics services, such as a trucking firm or express logistics provider or a third-party logistics provider, the first question is whether or not the provider's services will be needed. A suggested approach to making this decision is to make a careful assessment of the areas in which the manufacturing firm appears to have core competency. For a firm to have core competency in any given area, it's necessary to have expertise, strategic fit, and ability to invest. The absence of any one or more of these may suggest that the services of an external provider are appropriate. If the relationship decision involves a channel partner, such as a supplier or customer, the focus is not so much on whether or not to have a relationship, but on what type of relationship will work best. In either case, the question as to what type of relationship is most appropriate is one that is very important to answer. The partnership model incorporates the identification of drivers and facilitators of a relationship. It indicates that for a relationship to have a high likelihood of success, the right drivers and facilitators should be present. Drivers are defined as compelling reasons to partner. For a relationship to be successful, the theory of the model is that all parties must believe that they will receive significant benefits in one or more areas, and that these benefits will not be possible without a partnership. Drivers are strategic factors that may result in a competitive advantage and may help to determine the appropriate type of business relationship. Although other factors may certainly be considered, the primary drivers include the following: asset to cost efficiency, customer service, marketing advantage, profit stability and growth. Facilitators are defined as supportive corporate environmental factors that enhance partnership growth and development. As such, they are factors that, if present, can help to ensure the success of the relationship. Included among the main types of facilitators are the following: corporate compatibility, management philosophy and techniques, mutuality of commitment to relationship formation, and symmetry on key issues such as relative size, financial strength, and so on. Step 3. Evaluate alternatives. Using a methodology by which the apparent level of drivers and facilitators may suggest the most appropriate type of relationships to consider. If neither the drivers nor the facilitators seem to be present, then the recommendation would be for the relationship to be more transactional or arm's length in nature. Step 4. Select partners. While this stage is of critical concern to the customer, the selection of a logistics or supply chain partner should be made only following very close consideration of the credentials of the most likely candidates. Step 5. Structure the operating model. The structure of the relationship refers to the activities, processes, and priorities that will be used to build and sustain the relationship. Step 6. Implementation and continuous improvement. Once the decision to form a relationship has been made and the structural elements of the relationship identified, it's important to recognize that the most challenging step in the relationship process has just begun. Depending on the complexity of the new relationship, the overall implementation process may be relatively short or may be extended over a longer period of time. Finally, the future success of relationships will be a direct function of the ability of the involved organizations to achieve both continuous and breakthrough improvement. As indicated in the figure, a number of steps should be considered in the continuous improvement process. In addition, efforts should be directed to creating the breakthroughs or paradigm-shifting type of improvement that's essential to enhance the functioning of the relationship and the market position of the organizations involved. The figure on the slide outlines the steps in a process model for forming and sustaining supply chain relationships. For purposes of illustration, let's assume that the model is being applied from the perspective of a manufacturing firm, as it considers the possibility of forming a relationship with a supplier of logistics services. Okay, collaboration may be thought for the benefit of all as a business practice that encourages individual organizations to share information and resources. Collaboration allows companies to leverage each other on an operational basis so that together they perform better than they would separately. While this approach creates a synergistic business environment in which the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, it's not one that comes naturally to most organizations, particularly those offering similar or competing products or services. Collaboration requires each of the 7 elements listed on the slide. Let's take a look at some of the benefits and some of the barriers. First, the benefits. These, of course, focus primarily on increased coordination and lower costs, more efficiency, but there are barriers. In practice, successful collaboration requires overcoming quite a number of these. Typical ones are resistance to change, conflicting business objectives, inconsistent goals and key performance indicators, lack of trust, unwillingness to share information, lack of managerial support, and turf protection. One way of extending the logistics organization beyond the boundaries of the company is through the use of a supplier of third-party or contract logistics services. 3 important types of collaboration are vertical, horizontal, and full. Descriptions of these are as follows. Vertical collaboration refers to collaboration typically among buyers and sellers in the supply chain. This refers to the traditional linkages between firms in the supply chain, such as retailers, distributors, manufacturers, and parts and material suppliers. Horizontal collaboration refers to relationships that may be buyer to buyer and/or seller to seller, and in some cases even between competitors, including providers of logistics services. Essentially, this type of collaboration refers to business arrangements between firms that have parallel or cooperating positions in the logistics or supply chain process. Full collaboration is that a dynamic combination of both vertical and horizontal collaboration. Only with full collaboration do dramatic efficiency gains begin to occur. Let's take a look at third-party logistics. As you see on the slide, a third-party logistics firm may be defined as an external supplier that performs all or part of a company's logistics functions. Although there are important distinctions in terminology, the term third-party logistics, or 3PL, generally refers to a broad range of instances where commercial organizations provide and/or manage logistics services on behalf of clients and customers. Firms have directed considerable attention toward working more closely with other supply chain participants, including customers, suppliers, and various providers or logistics services. Although the term 3PL is in everyday use, there are a number of participants who are involved in the buying and selling of outsourced logistics services. As indicated on the slide, these may range from 1PLs to 5PLs. Of course, most commonly we talk about 3PLs and sometimes 4PLs. A 3PL is defined to include commercial providers or managers of logistics supply chain services. 3PLs typically provide services relating to transportation, warehousing, and distribution center management, customs brokerage and clearance, contract logistics, and freight forwarding, things of that nature. 4PLs providers not only provide a broader scope of services to their clients and customers, but typically may be more strategically involved than 3PLs would be. Essentially a supply chain integrator, a 4PL may be thought of as a firm that assembles and manages the resources, capabilities, and technology of its organization with those of complementary service providers to deliver a comprehensive supply chain solution. The figure illustrates the range of alternatives available to shippers and receivers of product moved through the supply chain. The alternatives begin with the possibility of insourcing, where the needed logistics service may be provided on a proprietary basis by the shippers and/or receivers in need of these services. Then, in order of increasing strategic involvement, are alternatives relating to 3PLs, 4PLs, and spinning off or selling elements of the supply chain. Spin-off elements of the supply chain is a recent innovation that would occur when a firm divests itself of or sells elements of its supply chain to another organization for reasons typically relating to core competency. Three PL providers include transportation-based, warehouse distribution-based, forwarder-based, shipper management-based, financial-based, and informational-based firms. Contract logistics generally refers to services related to warehousing and distribution and provide a broad range of supply chain solutions. Experience has indicated that these facility-based operations have found the transition to integrated logistics service to be less complex than have the transportation providers. Freight forwarding is essential to the daily flow of global commerce and involves a wide range of organizations that purchase shipping capacity from asset-based providers and then resell to supply chain customers. Financial-based firms provide services such as freight payment and auditing, cost accounting and control, tools for managing shipment visibility, information and tracking, consulting, and advisory services. In recent years, the growth and development of internet-based business-to-business electronic markets for transportation and logistics services have been significant. Since these resources effectively represent alternative sources for those in need of purchasing transportation and logistics services, they may be thought of as a newer, innovative type of third-party provider. Principal examples of 3PL organizations that initially were divisions or subsidiaries of manufacturing or distributor organizations include Neovia, IBM Global Business Services, and Odyssey Logistics.